One of the most beautiful stories in the Quran is that of Yusuf alayhi salam. And in specific, when I was doing my study of tafsir and I was going over the story of Yusuf alayhi salam, the most interesting part for me was verse 100 of Surah Yusuf. And that is when Yusuf alayhi salam is being reunited finally after decades. He is being reunited with his father, his mother, and his brothers. And during this stage, the Quran records a conversation that Yusuf alayhi salam is having with his father. And in specific, he tells his father that Allah has been so kind to me when He rescued me from the prison, and then He brought you from the desert after Shaitan stirred discord between me and my brothers. And he says, certainly Allah is so subtle in the fulfillment of His will, and He is the all-knowing and the all-wise. And the reason this part actually baffled me was because, when you start studying the story of Yusuf alayhi salam, the way that Allah has pictured it in the Quran, you see that in the beginning he's a child and he's betrayed by his brothers who end up throwing him in a well. And then finally, when he is rescued by some travelers who are passing by, as a young boy, now he's thinking, I will finally be reunited with my family. These people have rescued me and they will send me back home. But he faces betrayal again because the travelers end up selling him as a slave. So now he's landed in Egypt, all right? He's far away from home. And over there he's taken in by this master and his wife who have now accepted Yusuf alayhi salam as a slave. So from being a prophet's son, Yaqub alayhi salam's son, his status is now that of a slave. Now, being a young boy who has been separated from his family, as he works for the master and his wife, it is only natural for him to start loving them and respecting them, right? Because he starts to look up to them as his own parents. And then the wife of the Aziz, she ends up trying to seduce him. So that's betrayal that he now faces a third time. And then eventually in the story, what you see is that the Aziz, the wife's husband, who understands the entire situation, and it's very clear to him, as well as to the other men in the city, that Yusuf alayhi salam is innocent, they end up throwing him in jail. So that's betrayal again. That's the fourth betrayal that he faces. And so here's a prophet whose childhood has practically been taken away from him. And he has faced a series of betrayals in his life. But what you see when you study his story is that there is nothing but tawakkul and hope in his journey. So at no point do you see that Yusuf alayhi salam is complaining to Allah and saying, Allah, I'm tired, I'm exhausted. I just don't have it in me now to spread the message of Islam. I'm depressed. At no point do you see that Yusuf alayhi salam is constantly crying because he misses his parents or because he's just tired of his life. In fact, even when he is in jail, he is propagating the message of Islam. So what you see is there's immense amount of tawakkul and hope that, okay, right now, whatever is happening in my life, it is difficult and I'm not able to make sense of it, but I have this yaqeen, I have this certainty that there is some khair in it, that there is something great that will eventually come out of it. And that is the hope that he had throughout his journey and the trust in God that he had throughout his journey. And the most beautiful thing is what you see happening right at the end when finally he is reunited with his parents and his brothers. So now he's having a one-to-one conversation with his dad, who also happens to be a prophet. And even though they both are prophets talking to each other, they are also father and son. So you would expect this is the moment when Yusuf alayhi salam will now start to complain and tell his father that, my life was very difficult. My brothers did this to me. And then when I was rescued from the caravan, this is what happened. And then the Aziz's wife did this to me. And then I was put in jail for something that everyone knew I had not done. And I was innocent. But you don't see a word of complaint. And it's not because he is not allowed to complain. I mean, this is a son who is not exactly publicly speaking to everyone in the city. He's just talking to his dad. And of course, he's allowed to talk to his father and just to share the difficult moments in his life with his dad. But what you see from the words that he chooses in verse 100, you realize that there's nothing but gratitude. So he's thanking Allah for the fact that he was rescued from the prison. Interestingly, he's not focusing on the fact that, well, it was Allah's will that put him in prison. So the fact that he was actually put in jail in the first place is also something that was decreed. It happened with the will of Allah. But that's not the part that he focuses on. He focuses on the part where he's actually rescued from prison, right? In the same way, then he focuses on the part that he's been able to get his family out of the desert into this flourishing, thriving city of Egypt. And now there is nothing but love and mercy and kindness between him and his brothers, where there once used to be discord that Shaitan had put between them. So again, he's focusing on the fact that now everything is so great and we love each other, and the brothers are just reunited. And he's not even talking about all those years where there was hatred, where there was jealousy, where there was animosity between the brothers. So what you see is that he's just so grateful for everything that he now has, and he's not even thinking or focusing on everything that he ended up losing in the past. All the tough times and all the things that he lost during his journey, that is not even part of his focus. He's just focusing on everything amazing and great that he has right now. This is what you call sabr. This is what you call patience. Patience is having tawakkul and hope throughout the time when things are difficult, and at the same time having this genuine gratitude that no matter how tough life gets, no matter how hard life becomes, you never fall into that victim mentality where you look back and say, my childhood was destroyed. My previous years were just taken away from me. When you look back, your mindset has changed. Your perspective has changed so much that you only focus on the good moments that you had, even if they were just one or two. Your mind doesn't even go to all the difficult times because you don't get into that victim mentality. So even in a journey which is so incredibly tough, so difficult, and filled with so much betrayal, Yusuf alayhi salam was able to pick those moments where there was a bit of relief, where there was a bit of ease. And that's all his mind focused on. His mind didn't even go to the other parts. That is what gratitude actually means. This is what sabr means. So when you are going through a difficult moment in your life and you are reminded by someone that in the Quran Allah explains that His special mercy will be on those who have sabr, understand what patience actually means. It means have immense tawakkul and hope. Have immense trust in Allah's plan. Understand that things might not make sense to you right now, but eventually they will. Understand that Allah's mercy is going to come, no matter how difficult your life might actually be. So whatever you do, don't fall into despair. Don't fall into hopelessness. Don't fall into negativity. And most importantly, show gratitude. And showing gratitude does not mean that you're just saying Alhamdulillah all the time. What it means is that change your mindset, change your perspective so that when you look in your past, all you remember are the blessings of Allah. When you look at yourself today, all you can think of are the amazing things that Allah has given you. So that your mind doesn't focus on what you have lost, your mind focuses on the things you have been given. That is when your body will be injected with all this positivity and hope, and that is when Allah will select you for His special mercy, as He did for Yusuf alayhi salam.